This is the volunteer processing tutorial for communities in schools of the Midlands. This tutorial will explain the parts of the application and provide details to processing them. Volunteers are the heartbeat of the organization. They are the resource that allows communities and schools of the Midlands to meet the needs of so many students every day. Many potential volunteers fall through the cracks while waiting for their applications to be processed. In order to prevent this, we must try to process the application quickly and effectively. The application is a very lengthy process for the volunteer. It includes the general application, 2 written reference forms, state and national sex offender registry forms, a SLED background check consent form, a DSS central registry check consent form, and volunteers must also go through an orientation. When you accept an application, make sure that all pages are completed and legible. Make sure that signatures are affixed as they need to be. The DSS Central Registry check verifies that the volunteers has not had any documented occurrences with the Department of Social Services. This form has to be completed. They must include their full Social Security number, the date of birth, and the place of birth. This document must also be witnessed. This form needs to be submitted with a check request to the Director of Operations. Please be aware of the check request schedule. If you miss a check request, you tack on an extra 15 days to the processing time of this document. If a volunteer wishes to donate the cost of this background check, it is $7, and the check must be made payable to DSS Central Registry. The SLED and sex offender registries report arrests and instances of encounter with state law enforcement that a potential volunteer may have had. These forms are processed by the Director of Operations on every Friday and only need to be turned in with a check request. If a volunteer would like to donate the cost of this background check, it is $7. The check must be made out to communities and schools of the Midlands. It must be made to the organization in order to receive a 50% discount. Otherwise, the cost of the background check is $14. A national sex offender online check must be done also. This can be completed by visiting the National Sex Offender Registry site and searching the applicant's name. The volunteer is required to list 3 professional or educational references on their application. Make sure they are complete. The application also includes 2 written reference forms. The volunteer should give them to 2 of the 3 listed references to complete. The form can be mailed or faxed back to the organization. These forms have separate instructions on them for the references. The volunteer has to have an orientation to the organization and their site. The volunteer orientation to the organization is available on the website under the Get Involved tab. Volunteers can watch the orientation at home or in the main office. The volunteers also need a site orientation so that the site coordinator may acclimate the volunteer with the rules and regulations of the school. After all of the paperwork is complete, the volunteer info sheet must be filled out. This sheet is just a checklist to help verify that all steps of the process have been completed and to easily view all of the expiration dates for the various background checks. A copy of this sheet and a copy of page 1 of the application will be sent to the site for the coordinator to keep on file. Here are some tips for success when processing your volunteer application. When receiving the application, make sure your volunteer has completed and returned the entire application. Be aware of the check request schedule for the processing of the DSS Central Registry check. Check to be sure that your volunteer's references are educational or professional and that they have been an acquaintance for 2 or more years. Remember, the volunteer process can take time. Communicate the volunteer's progress to them as often as possible. Offer them office work or other volunteer work in the interim. We do not wish to lose volunteers during the application process, so let's make sure we let them know how much we appreciate their service. Their gift of time to us is priceless.